Okay, so we're now at the stage where we know that tan 2 theta plus pi over 4 is equal to 3. That's what we're aware of. Since this is the case, we can now also utilize this equation here, wherein you can see by comparison A, if we compare A is 2 theta, that's what's happening there, and B is pi over 4. Hence, I'm going to write that to make it nice and clear, and I'm going to change these parts, the left and right side of the equation, to fit with our new system. So tan A becomes tan 2 theta, the B becomes pi over 4. I do the same for each stage, and I'm left with an equation that looks something like this. If I pick the correct tool to do it, there we are. Now, one thing that is definitely the case is to recognize that tan pi over 4 is like I said, this is 180 degrees divided by 4, so this is 45 degrees. We've said what 45 degrees is. I illustrated it in this diagram here for tan. Tan 45 is 1 because it is sine 45 divided by cos 45, which have the exact same value, so top on top, the top divided by the bottom produce 1. And henceforth, I can just say, well, any circumstance in which I see tan pi over 4, I will just make it 1. Notice that there's a pi over 4 here, tan pi over 4 here, and tan pi over 4 at the denominator as well. So we can remove these two, or at least we can substitute 1 in for them, and therefore 1 appears here and 1 appears there. We're left with this equation, which we can simplify. We don't need to times by 1, I got rid of that. This plus 1, and you get rid of the brackets, there's no need for that. Tan 2 theta plus 1 over 1 minus tan 2 theta equals 3 is what we're left with. And notice where that came from, just as a reminder, we've known from the beginning, and this is given in many situations if you're doing exams and so forth, this is normally given. If not, it's not too difficult to remember with practice. Tan alpha plus beta or A plus B is tan A plus tan B over 1 minus tan A tan B, and this is born from working out the opposite or divided by the adjacent for a circumstance where you have two angles, alpha and beta, and they are right angle triangles sat on top of each other, linked, wherein the hypotenuse of the bottom triangle is equal to the adjacent of the top triangle. With a little geometry born from this image, you'll end up with this equation. This is true. Now what we did is we divided both sides by cos, and by dividing both sides by cos, we took our equation, divided both sides by cos, we're left with this. We know sine theta over cos theta is tan theta, so I was able to write it in this form. I then utilized that formula. I said, well, A must be 2 theta, pi over 4 must be B. Substitute those in for all parts A and B, and I'm left with this equation here in blue. Notice that if I have tan pi over 4, that is 1, and so I substituted that 1 in for all circumstances where I saw tan pi over 4, and I'm left with this equation. This leads us quite nicely to the end part of this discussion. And so that is, we have tan 2 theta plus 1 over 1 minus tan 2 theta equals 3. I'm going to multiply both sides by 1 minus tan 2 theta. So you can also describe this as moving this up here. So there you see I do it. I'm going to multiply out the 3. So here we have 3 times this. I'm going to therefore instead I'm going to multiply out this 3, both 3 times 1 here and 3 times tan theta there, tan 2 theta. I'm now going to move this tan 2 theta to join its brother on the left hand side. So plus 3 tan 2 theta. So we've got 2 tan 2 theta and plus 3 tan 2 theta. And this plus 1 I'm going to move to this side. I don't need that. I want to separate the functions from the numbers or the constants. So now plus 1 becomes minus 1, so take away 1 from both sides. 3 minus 1 is 2. Tan 2 theta plus 3 tan 2 theta is 4 tan 2 theta. It's like 1 orange plus 3 oranges is 4 oranges. Then we have a circumstance, no, I said oranges, I think I might be thirsty. 4 tan 2 theta is equal to 2. Tan 2 theta, therefore, divide by both sides by 4, I got 2/4, and therefore tan 2 theta is 1/2. And therefore, that is it. That is our solution. We are now and we can work this out. We can do tan to the power minus 1/2 and check that the value of theta we get is true for this. That can be done. But what's most important is to recognize that we were given sine and cos and we were told tan. And the first thing to recognize is that tan is related to sine and cos. So that's one of the things that happens in these questions. It's saying, are you aware that tan is related to sine and cos? Yes, I am. Are you aware that this is double angle formulae? Yes. Do you know the double angle formulae? Yes. Moreover, are you aware as to how to utilize it? If you've got a 2 theta and a quarter pi, then alpha becomes 2 theta and beta becomes quarter pi. And from there, it's such things as are you aware that tan a quarter pi is therefore a value that can be simplified down quite nicely. And so that is a nice problem perhaps with regards to utilizing this kind of knowledge. Thanks for your time.